The next shot that we're going to work on is the living room shot, and we're actually going to use a corner of this island to show how the kitchen now connects to the living room, and we used that corner of the couch earlier to show how that connects to the dining room. Let me show you what I'm thinking for composition here. In the shot we did of the dining area, we can actually see these 5 pictures all in the frame. So the composition I've chosen now, we're cut right down the middle of here. It's a visual anchor to know that just on the other side of this artwork is the dining area. And my shot is fairly tight. I'm zoomed in quite a bit. And again, that's compressing the scene. As I'm standing here, there's a few things I might tweak. I might just straighten out these drapes a little bit. Again, we don't want to spend a ton of time. So just give it a quick once over and see if there's anything that jumps out at you. I'm gonna fix this one as well. So we're battling a little bit of sunlight here coming through on the floor. So we're gonna have to base our exposure probably on what's happening with these French doors and the floor here. Couch looks good. Again, you can always go around and just give the cushions a quick touch up to make sure everything looks nice and neat. Definitely gonna have to straighten out these stools so that the backs are all nice and straight. These are gonna be in our shot in the corner that, again, is gonna anchor us into the next shot when we start to shoot in the kitchen area. So again, it's using these small little chunks just to connect and orientate the viewer. This is more or less the composition that I've landed on. And again, you can see that we've cut right through the artwork on the corner of the frame here and the islands in the bottom left. If I zoom out, you can see that we're showing a whole bunch more, but we're really not telling any more of the story. And I think that having this pendant light down here in the foreground, it's distracting. Got just a little sliver of the island coming in here, which really doesn't make any sense. So by tightening up that composition, again, we get more of that design type feel, and everything gets a little bit bigger in the frame. It's easier to light, and I just think that it's more appealing overall for the viewer. So we're gonna end up right around here. And just like last time, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna angle the camera down just slightly. I'm just gonna crank the back knob here, and I'm just gonna go downward a little bit just to eliminate a touch of that ceiling. And we're using that top corner as a hinge point, so we do have to zoom out just a touch so that when we bring that back in post, after we lose those pixels, we generally end up with the same composition. Next thing that I wanna do is confirm that I've got focus. So again, I'm just gonna halfway press the shutter button, listen for that beep, and that's the camera telling me that we have focus. I'm gonna switch back over to manual, and I'm just gonna go down to where my meter says is a proper exposure, and I'm gonna take a frame. Looking at this exposure, we can see that it's pretty dark overall. We do have a good exposure on the French doors. We can see what's happening outside. Again, it's not underexposed. It has that realistic feel where it doesn't look like a poster's been pasted into the window frame. We've still got detail in the hardwood floor. We're getting a little bit of a blown out area just in this one section here. I'm not too worried about that. I could increase the shutter speed a little bit more, but it's not a major issue. So I think that this is where we're gonna start. And what I need to do is remember that the frame is split in half. I want to try to get a good bright exposure for the top of the frame, and I'm going to use an umbrella shooting across. And then I may even put a light over in this area here to have some light flooding back across this direction. So let's start with that umbrella and get that set up. Again, I'm going to try and move a little bit more quickly here to show you sort of the actual pace that I move at. Usually it only takes me 2 or 3 minutes to compose light and get all the pieces I need for a shot. So we've got that CTO gel on here because we're using the umbrella. I'm at full power. I want to make sure that my umbrella is just outside of this artwork here. We don't want to flare the camera, and we don't want that overlighting this one section. So let's go back to the camera, and we're going to take an exposure. Okay. It's pretty dramatic how much light you actually get out of that one speed light that's being shot through the umbrella. We can see the reflection right in the artwork over here, and then the ceiling's way too hot up here. So I'm gonna have to move that light and adjust the power. So I'm gonna go down to half power, and I'm actually gonna move it right over here behind that artwork so that hopefully we can eliminate the reflection. And this is just trying to get us a good exposure for the ceiling and an overall brightness for the entire frame. Shoot one more exposure here and see what we get. We can see that we've now eliminated the reflection over here, but it's way too bright because that light is too close to that artwork now. And we've introduced a reflection in this piece of art that's on the left side. So I'm gonna have to go back over and find the sweet spot where I can place that light where it's not gonna be showing up as a reflection. This place has some crazy art in it. It's been a real challenge trying to hide lights and place lights without it showing up in the art, because basically it's a house of mirrors. So let's try this. Again, it's a trial and error thing. I sort of have a starting point, but I never really know where I'm gonna go. And you just have to take a shot, look at the back of the camera, and adjust. I'm gonna take another shot. We're still showing up in that artwork. So there's two things I could do at this point. I can continue to mess around with that light and to try to get it in a place where it's not showing up in that art, or I can think in the composite mindset and take a frame and drop it in there. I don't want to have to do that, so I think I'm going to try to move this light one more time. If I get what I want, great, and if not, I'm going to have to move on and come up with another solution to that problem, because I don't want to spend way too much time just trying to find the spot for this light to go. So all I'm going to do is just back it off a little bit more. Just going to keep coming this way, and hopefully I find a spot where the camera can't see it. All right, let's take another shot. We do see a tiny little bit here, just on the edge. I'm fine with that. Remember that we're gonna pull those verticals back so they're straight up and down in post, and we're gonna actually lose those pixels. The actual finished composition should be sort of right down the middle of this artwork. So I think we're good to go there. The corner of this island is way too hot, but what we're gonna do is dial back that light, and then we're gonna add some of that top-down fill light that looks like it's coming through the French doors and from these overhead can lights. So before I forget, I'm actually gonna take this guy and I'm just gonna put him down here on the railing and maybe try to get a little bit more fill from this direction as well. So this light has actually a long way to travel. It's gotta go about 15 feet to this back wall here. So this one's gonna be at full power, and I'm just gonna balance it just right on the railing here. Anytime I can bounce off of something, that's what I wanna do. I hate setting up modifiers. It just slows the process down. So let's go ahead and take a shot and see what we get. Okay, you know what it was? That flash was actually sitting on the countertop here, and it was firing that whole time. So that's why this corner of the island was really, really hot, and now we're not seeing that anymore. I would like a little bit more fill coming from this direction. I was sort of misled by that flash hitting the ceiling just above me, and I do want a little bit more light coming from right to left. So I'm actually gonna take this guy and add him over here. I'm just gonna bounce off the wall, and I'm just gonna set him right on the dining room table. Again, these are the trickiest shots when it's a wide open space like this. I could set up another umbrella. I want to try to avoid that at all costs. Let's take another shot and see what we get. It added us more fill, but on this right side of the frame, we can see now it's lit up. Again, this is a house of mirrors. I think I'm going to run with that for my top 50% of my frame, and I know that I'm going to have a piece later on that I can just mask that tiny little bit out where we can see the reflection in this piece of art here. I'm going to dial back the power on that just a little bit and grab my light on the stick, and we're going to bounce it just sort of off the ceiling and to the left side of the living room, again mimicking and sort of embellishing the ambient light that we should be seeing in the room right now. So I'm just going to pop over here, turn this guy down just a little bit, and I'm going to turn this guy right off. Okay. And walking over here, I want to try to stay at a frame again. As much as I can keep myself out of the frame, it's going to cut down all the compositing and post-production work I have to do. And I'm just going to hold this over the scene and bounce it. That's getting us some really, really cool light on the sofa. It looks like it's nice daylight streaming in from the French doors. We have a hot spot here on the island, which we're gonna have to deal with on the corner here as well. But I think overall, the room has some nice light in it. So what I'm gonna do is just come to the other side of the room, and I'm gonna switch back over to live view here. And I'm gonna try bouncing just in a few different spots. So I'm gonna hold the light here, just out of frame, and bounce that, and then review and see what we got. So I really, really, really like what's going on in the actual living room area. There's some really great top-down light on this sofa. There's some great shape and texture. The floor here is actually quite a bit darker than I want it to be, so I might just try to add another light to this scene as well. I'm gonna borrow our little guy who was on his feet over here on the table. And we're gonna bounce him. You know what he was doing earlier on the counter was pretty nice, so I'm just gonna set him right here and go back out into the scene. So that guy will see all the other lights firing and he'll go off as well. And we're just gonna hold this out here. So that's looking really, really good. The only thing we need to deal with is we just have this hot spot showing up on the island on the left side here. That might just be an extra piece we need to get. If I aim this up here, we should be able to light up the floor down below and get some good light on that island. It's way too hot, so we're gonna turn the power down on this a little bit. That was at a half power. I'm gonna come down to about an eighth. And we're gonna put it here. Again, these are just partially insurance frames because I'm sure that we could find something that would blend together well in post, but we wanna try to do this as quickly as possible and with as little work as possible. We have a good overall ceiling exposure. I've got now frames for the artwork here. There's no reflection showing up in here at all, so I know I have a piece for that. You just kind of have to keep a mental note of all the moving parts, dealing with reflections, and that's something that's gonna take some practice to remember all these things. But again, if you overshoot and get more than you need, at least you'll have that in post if you do require it. One thing I'm gonna do really quick is I'm just gonna run around the room and just pop the light in a few different spots. It's a big room, and it's one of the hero shots of this house, so I wanna make sure that I have some extra pieces if I do need them. So I'm just gonna switch back over to live view, and I'm literally just gonna run around the room quickly, and I'm gonna shoot the light over here. And again, these are kind of insurance shots. No real plan for these, but it's better to have a little bit more than not enough. So I think that we have all the pieces we need for this. When we get it into Photoshop, I think it's gonna be maybe 2 or 3, at the most 4 frames that we put together again. What we're gonna do is just drag some gradients and blend these things together. We should get a really, really cool shot. And again, now we've started to tell more of the story of this open layout here by using these anchors to connect everything together. So let's get on to the next shot.